If it's your first time here with us, as we've said already, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. My name's Jason, by the way, if I haven't met you yet. I'm here on staff at the church, and these days, most of what I do, most of the time that I spend during my week, my work week at least, I work as a mental health therapist. Every week, I sit with individuals, but I also sit a lot of my week with couples. And we work on marriages. We work on relationship skills. We work on communication skills and how to build relationships that are flourishing, that are thriving, and not just barely making it or just surviving. And if you're new and you're just joining in with us, for the past few weeks, what we've been looking at and learning together, we've been looking at some foundational pieces that go into making a marriage that really essentially does what God intended for marriages to do from the very beginning. And what God intended for marriage to be and what He intended them to do is to reflect the character and nature of God. Within the relationship between the husband and the wife, what you see in that relationship ought to reflect the nature of the God that we serve and worship. And what we learned before we even dove into this topic was that we learned that God is a covenant-making, covenant-keeping kind of God, and therefore marriage is meant to be that too. And the way He keeps His covenant, God's covenant with people, is we've been saying throughout this series, is God shows self-giving, self-sacrificial love within His relationship with us. And so, again, as we reflect that into the marriage relationship, a marriage is to be a covenant between a husband and a wife, marked by that same kind of self-sacrificial, self-giving love shared equally between the two, the husband and the wife. So marriage, essentially, as you see on the screen, the title that we've given this series, it's a relationship between a husband and wife where both come together and they agree, I will be for you, and I will be for us, and I'll do that for life. And today we come to, the final little piece in my part in this series. And let me say, after today, I won't even have come close to scratching the surface of solving all the things that there is to solve within your marriage. I will not have answered all of your marriage questions. In fact, that wasn't my goal in the first place. That's one of the reasons why we announced last week that we're starting a place where we can start to begin to do that kind of thing. We're starting a gathering of couples, married couples, maybe even some couples who intend to be married, maybe just dating couples, but a place where couples can come this fall, and we're going to regularly meet together every month, and we're going to connect. We're going to dive deeper into all of those issues and answer all of those questions that we possibly can, and hopefully a whole lot more. And so I'll just say one more time, like we did last week, if that's something you're curious about, if you're interested in that, there's a space on your card today where you can put your name and number and just let us know, hey, I'm interested. Now, let me just say, you're not committing to coming to do anything. You're just saying, I'm interested, and I'll be sending you more information. I'll be reaching out to you as the day gets closer and we get more details, and I'll just keep you in the loop. And we'll begin this whole thing and hopefully get into some of the more details that I know some of you probably care about. But I also want to say today, especially if you walked into this series and this is your first time with us, we have spent the last 2 weeks laying the spiritual, scriptural foundation for a healthy marriage covenant. So if you missed those talks, those are on our YouTube page, our podcast feed. You can get those. Today is kind of like me just bringing it all together. And so I'll just tell you right up front, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading Bible verses to you and unpacking what the scriptures say. We kind of did that in week 1, and I promise someone will be back next week and they'll do all that for you. Today is going to be a little bit different. Today, I'm going to try and leave you with some really simple, really practical ideas that I hope will spark conversation, especially if you're married, between you and your spouse, or maybe if you're not married. And maybe you hope to be married one day. I hope this will start you in the right direction. It will kind of get you kicked off on the right foot, that you'll be thinking in terms of what a covenant marriage might look like for you and for maybe a partner that you have right now or someone that you will meet later in the future. And I'll start with an illustration. Anybody ever heard of a natural law that exists in the universe? It's called the second law of thermodynamics. Does anybody know what that is? We've got some science people in the room. And I promise I'm not about to do a science lesson. This does apply. But if you dumb it down where normal people can understand it, like me, here's what the second law of thermodynamics basically says. It says, left on its own, everything in the universe breaks down. Left to its own, everything becomes chaotic. It becomes disordered. And you know this is true because you see it every day. For example, stop mowing your lawn and stop trimming your hedges. All right? And what will happen? Well, eventually it becomes a jungle in your yard and animals will move in and they'll take over, right? Stop cleaning your house. Stop maintaining your living space. Just let it go. Eventually, you know what will happen. It'll get filthy. It'll get unlivable. And those animals that took over your yard are moving in. And they're going to take over your house. In other words, it's just the natural state of things. It's the natural state of the world that without any care, without any effort, without any work, everything drifts into chaos. And you already know where this is going. You can see this clearly. The same thing is true for relationships. The same thing is true in your marriage. The natural state of a relationship that's left alone, that isn't given any care, any work, any effort, is it will drift. It will break down. It will go into chaos. Now, I feel like I need to say this because I'm wondering if maybe there are some people in the room and maybe you're a couple and you've only been together maybe a year or less and you're kind of arguing with me and you're like, oh no, that'll never happen to us because see, we don't argue. We don't have any problems. And I just want to say to you, you're so cute. You know, look at you living your best life in your little honeymoon fantasy world. And you just need to know the rest of us hate you, and that's okay. And one day you will learn. So for everybody else in the room who's not arguing with me in your head, you know this is true, right? I mean, you get this. You know that life happens. You know that schedules get busy. You know that the in-laws start showing up at your house every so often. And you know that the kids come along and maybe one or two or three or more. And you know that money gets tight and that work gets hard and work gets demanding. And before you know it, that perfect marriage that you thought would never drift into chaos, well, it's just drifted away and you're not sure where it went. And maybe it was just a little bit. Maybe it's just off, maybe one or two clicks, but for some of you, it's a whole lot of drifting. Feelings aren't as intense anymore. The conversations that used to just flow and it was just so easy, well, they don't flow as naturally as they used to. The connection that you used to feel between the two of you, for some reason, it just doesn't feel as close as it did. And I know that's not the marriage you dreamed of. I know you didn't stand in front of all those people and say those vows and take all those beautiful pictures with the intention of being here where you are today. You had a better, bigger dream in mind. You thought I would be always happily married, not contractually married. But we drift into the contract from happiness often. So the question that we're going to ask is, how do you fight against the natural state of marriage, which is to just go with the flow and drift apart? And I think I found the answer. And the answer is very simple. The answer is sea otters. You heard me right. Sea otters hold the key to the marriage drift. Now, here's what maybe you already knew this about sea otters. Did you know that when sea otters sleep, they sleep in the water, floating on their backs? That's how they sleep. Did you also know that sea otters, they pair up? They have partners. And what sea otters do when they sleep is they find their partner and they hold hands, like you see in that picture. Isn't that cute? They hold hands and they go to sleep holding hands. And the reason they do that is simple, because they know they're going to be drifting while they're sleeping, because that's what water does. You just drift on the water. But they also know that if we hold hands, it doesn't matter where we drift. It doesn't matter where the water takes us, because when we wake up, we're going to be right there together. Now, that's just a cute idea to get your attention. It's probably the only thing you're going to remember that I say today. And I'm cool with that. If that's all you get, I'm okay with that. But the point is simple. If you want to combat the natural drift of life in your marriage relationship, you got to have an intentional plan about it. See, most couples start out in marriage and they've got tons of feelings, tons of closeness, tons of affection between the two of them. But now sustaining that closeness over time, it's not an automatic thing. It has to be intentional. You have to put some time into it. You have to put effort into it to maintain that over the long haul of your life together. And see, right now, I can already probably guess what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm about to give you this long list of stuff, and you're kind of panicking. Your heart's a little bit racy right now because you're assuming that I'm about to tell you all the things that you need to do, all the stuff you need to add to your life in order for you to combat the drift. You know, most of the time when marriage advice gets given out, it sounds like, oh, you just need to go on more date nights. You just need to plan more trips. You need to get a babysitter more often than you currently do. In other words, you need to spend more time and you need to spend more money. And I know your life, most of you already have more than enough to do already. You're barely managing your life as it is. Your budget is stretched thinner than you ever hoped it would be. I get that. So adding to your list and your stress level, I don't think is helpful for you. So my suggestion is not add to a list. My suggestion is, why don't you just become like a sea otter? Instead of doing more things to keep your life from drifting apart, what if you changed the things that you're already doing in your normal everyday life? What if you just did the things you already do and you just decided to do them differently? Become more intentional about them. What if you did them together? See, sea otters know that we got to sleep every day. Our bodies need to rest. We're going to sleep no matter what. That's on the calendar. It ain't going to move. They just decide, okay, we're going to sleep differently. So instead of drifting apart, we're going to sleep holding hands. It doesn't have to be complicated. And it doesn't have to be stressful. See, again, nobody gets into marriage intending to drift. But life just happens. And you go through these stages. You go through these seasons in your life. You go through some tough ones. You go through some that are a little easier. But over time, those date nights, those things that you did, those plans that you made, those trips that you took to connect, especially when you first started dating or you were first married, they're not so easy to fit into a busy life of career and family and bills and kids and all the things. But the research tells us that couples stay connected and couples cultivate their affection for one another, not necessarily in the big stuff, but through sharing the common, ordinary moments of their lives together. In other words, and we talked about this last week, we build a team. We don't just build a marriage. It's the small things that count. It's not always the big, elaborate stuff that matters the most. It's the stuff you do together that you might not even realize and might not even think about because, well, they're just life. They're just what you do. I'll give you a couple of examples, and this comes right out of some of the most current research that we have on marriage these days. Did you know that research is telling us right now, most families in our world today function in their homes without what we call a shared bedtime anymore? This happened since the age of the internet. Since the internet brought us screens, and screens became personal and private. So right now, in the average household in our country, most people in that household spend their evenings in the evening on a private screen. They have a private, personal experience instead of a shared experience within the home. And so here's what we see happening. As a result of that, couples just don't go to bed together as much as they used to. It usually goes like this. There's one spouse on the couch, and let's say they're on their phone. The other is in the room, but they may be doing something else. They're on a different screen. They're watching a game or playing a video game, or they're watching the ball game on the screen. And so what happens is, as they're having this private experience, one spouse eventually gets tired and decides, I think I need to go to bed. And so they get up from what they're doing and they go to bed, but the other spouse is still not done. They're still having their personal, private experience. And so they stick with that for a little bit. And by the time they get tired enough to get up and go to bed, their spouse or their partner is already in bed, asleep, or close to falling asleep. And that's just becoming the norm in most households. And what studies are showing us that couples who decide, no matter what, we will go to bed together, those couples we're finding have more connection, more affection, and more flourishing in their marriage. Probably because in that same study, couples who share bedtime have sex more often. And it's more pleasurable than the couples who don't share bedtime. Now, this doesn't mean that if you have different shifts right now and you're in a season of life where your sleep schedules are not the same, that, oh, we're doomed. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just using that as an example of an everyday habit that everybody does, that if you did it together, it might make a difference. Other studies are showing that couples who spend what we call low-grade time together, even if they're not communicating about anything particular or anything important, those marriages experience more positive effects than the ones who don't. For example, most parents, especially when you're in that stage of raising kids and they're going this place and that place and they're involved in all kinds of extracurricular stuff, most parents decide we're gonna take the approach of divide and conquer, right? We're gonna get all of it done, and we're gonna piece out our week, our schedule, so that we get it all done. And so they do things like this. We divide the task of taking our daughter to practice, where one parent takes her to soccer practice on Monday and Wednesday, the other parent takes them on Tuesday and Thursday, and we get it all accomplished. Studies are showing that you're better off if you just decide which days can we actually do that together. Now, I know the pushback. I won't get as much done. And the truth is, all I'm going to be doing is sitting on the bleachers and sweat together. Is that what you're talking about? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Because when you're sitting on the bleachers and you're sweating together, conversations happen, connections happen that you don't have any other place. A few years ago, for example, my family got a dog. It's the first dog we've had as a married couple. And this dog has completely radically changed the way our household works. But we realized once we had this dog that this dog needs to be walked if the dog's going to stay healthy and it's going to be manageable. So my wife and I have just decided every evening, almost every evening when the weather allows, once dinner is done and it's put away, most nights we together head out, strap on the harness, and we walk our dog together. Now, I can just tell you, nothing magical happens on the dog walks. Well, if you count peeing and pooping magical, that's what happens. But what we have found on these walks together is that these moments, we talk. We just chat about, well, mainly about the parts of our lives that we do spend apart, because we spend a lot of our days apart at our jobs and doing the things that we're doing. And we talk about those times. We talk about what's going on. We talk about our plans, our hopes, our dreams. We talk about what we're worried about. And it just flows. It just happens. What I'm saying is, if us time becomes the default in your marriage rather than these individual private experiences that are primary, you will have more time for connection and affection, and it will grow. So the question I want you to consider is, what are you already doing? What does your schedule already look like? What's your day-to-day already look like? And is it possible to maybe do some of those things together rather than apart? Could you cook dinner together? One of you chops, one of you stirs. Could you do chores together on Saturday mornings? Could you do the grocery shopping together? I don't know. Whatever it looks like for you. But don't misunderstand me. Time alone is important, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. You need it, absolutely. But how can you arrange your life so that you're both in the same place at the same time and maybe sharing a conversation as part of your daily rhythm? See, this is what lays the foundation for all the other stuff that we think is the most important when we talk about date nights and trips and all the big things. If you already have a day-to-day connection within your marriage, when you do those bigger things, when you do take the trip, when you do go on the date night, it becomes something even more meaningful because you need both. You need the everyday connection and you need those special times of connection. Now, I want you to see something real quick that's going to tell you why this is so important.
Dr. John Gottman is one of the best marriage researchers in our world today, and he and his team talk about how each marriage has an emotional bank account. He says when couples turn toward each other and connect in a positive way, they are building up savings that, like money in the bank, can serve as a cushion when times get rough, when they're faced with a major life stress or conflict, because they have stored an abundance of goodwill. Such couples are less likely to teeter over into distrust and chronic negativity during hard times. Here's how it works. Every single day, spouses are making what are called bids for connection to their partner. A bid for connection is just a verbal or nonverbal way of someone reaching out to connect. And when one of you makes a bid, the other spouse responds in one of three ways. They either turn towards their spouse, they turn away, or they turn against the bid their partner makes. Turning toward is positive, and of course, turning away or against is negative. Gottman's research found that happy marriages had a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative responses. In other words, a marriage was solid and happy when couples turned toward each other's bids 4 out of every 5 times. But here's the most fascinating part. Unhappy couples had a ratio of 0.8 to 1. Statistically, that's almost even. So the couples where they just broke even stayed unhappy. That's why this skill is so vitally important to your marriage. So how do bids for connection work, and how do you respond in a positive way? Well, it's time for a crash course. Remember, a bid for connection is anything your partner says or does that invites a response. So you're sitting on the couch and your spouse lets out one of those long, loud sighs. Turning towards them sounds like this. Are you feeling okay? Is everything all right? Turning away sounds like this. What's the matter with you? Now it's the same question, but can you hear the difference? One is about concern, love, and care. The other is an accusation. Or you can go even further and turn against your partner, which sounds like, oh, here we go again. Now what? Here's another example. You're in the middle of doing a task and your spouse comes up behind you and wraps their arms around you in an embrace. How do you respond? If you turn toward, maybe you acknowledge it. You thank them for it. Better yet, you embrace the hug and lean in. Or you can turn away. You ignore it and keep right on doing whatever you are doing with no acknowledgement. Or you can turn against. You pull away and say, leave me alone. I have to finish this. Your spouse randomly says, I'm so exhausted. So you turn toward them. You look in their direction and ask with genuine kindness, is there anything I can do to help? Or you turn away and say, yeah, me too. Or you turn against and say, what? You don't think I'm tired too? Your spouse is driving you somewhere and they say, wow, look at that amazing sunset. If you turn toward them, you put down your phone, look up and say, oh wow, you're right. That is beautiful. Or you don't look up from your phone and just grunt or say, uh-huh. Or you might look at them and say, seriously, you made me look up for that? Every time you turn toward your partner when they make a bid for connection instead of turning away or against them, you're putting money in the emotional bank. And remember, if you're just breaking even, you're still running on a deficit. Now, no one can give their partner exactly what they're looking for every time he or she makes a bid for connection. It's not about giving them exactly what they ask for as much as it is responding in a positive, attentive, turning toward kind of way. So like if your partner walks in the door and says, I'd really like to go out and do something fun tonight, and you're staring down a pile of work that's due tomorrow and you're already exhausted, you can still turn toward them. You say something like, oh wow, that sounds so great, and I really wish I could. I would love more than anything to spend tonight with you, but I just can't tonight. Can we put something on the schedule for tomorrow night? The research shows those responses can be just as valuable to the flourishing of your marriage. The main thing you always want to communicate to your partner is, I notice you, I value you, and I like being with you. That's where you connect. That's where the marriage flourishes.
And before I jump into the next thing, can I just say I've seen that working in real time. I've seen that working in couples that I work with, just getting the ratio of turning towards higher than turning away or turning against. Trust me. And we probably don't even realize the amount that we're doing this in our day-to-day because we're just not conscious. We're just not intentional about it. So if you want more about that, I would love to talk to you. But I want to talk to you another thing about what I hear from couples when they wind up in my office and they tell me that they feel like they're drifting. I hear them say a lot to me. They go, well, we just don't seem to be able to spend quality time together like we used to. Now, here's what I've been learning from not just my own experience, but this is actually in the research that we have today. When most couples talk about spending time together, quality time, they'll wind up spending the majority of the time and energy in the conversation around getting that piece of their relationship. They think about and talk about the activity that they want to do together, or they talk about the place that they want to go together. That's actually not the most important piece. Here's the thing. You spending quality time with your partner isn't as much about the actual activity that you do as it is about what meaning do we attach to it. What does it mean to us? For example, if I were to pass a microphone around the room to all the couples sitting in here today, and I were to say something like, tell me about what quality time looks like for you, we would probably get as many answers as we have couples in the room, and they would all be different answers. Some of you would talk about, well, we go on these date nights and we go to these restaurants and we love our time together. Some of you would talk about, well, we love sitting at home playing board games together. Others of you talk about getting outdoors, going camping, and just having these adventures in all these exotic places. Others of you talk about just getting out and walking or exercising together, going to the gym together. Again, the amount of activities would be as many as the couples we have, because it's not about the activity. It's about what brings meaning to your relationship, what brings connection, what brings fun into the relationship. And can I just say this? It doesn't have to be just the two of you. It doesn't just have to be one-on-one. You can spend quality time when other people are around. This is something that my wife and I discovered a long time ago in our marriage, and we just sort of incorporated it throughout our life together. I'd say it's not a formal thing, so we don't have it on a calendar or anything, but about once a month, about once every 6 weeks, we just try to open up our date nights or our time together, and we invite other couples or other families into that space. And what we have found is that the conversations we have in those spaces, they are different than when it's just the two of us. They're not better, they're not worse, they're just different. We wind up telling stories that we don't tell the way we tell each other. Or we tell stories that we've already told each other, but we tell them in a different way when we're with another couple. We share our lives with them. They share their lives with us. And through that connection with them, our connection grows between me and my wife. We learn things from them that we didn't know on our own. And hopefully, they're learning something from us. Here's another kind of fun fact from the research about quality time and connection in marriage. You know what one of the clearest indicators of a healthy marriage relationship that kind of exists across the board that they found? It's shared laughter. There was a study in 2015 at the University of North Carolina, and what they found was the amount of time a couple spends simultaneously laughing together tracks directly with the quality of their relationship. It's the same graph. In other words, couples who laugh together are stronger, happier, and they feel closer to each other. So here's a question. When was the last time you and your partner laughed at the same time together? Notice I didn't say that one of you laughed while the other didn't laugh. That's a whole nother thing, and we can talk about that too. But really, what activities bring laughter into your shared space? Movies, shows, places, people that always bring a smile to your face, and you always find humorous together. See, happy couples know how to have fun together. Happy couples also know how to be bored together. And that's important too, right? Because again, it's not as much about where are we, what are we doing? No. It's what does this mean to us? What we mean to each other. It's the fact that I am in this experience and I am sharing it with you, and you are my partner in this life. You are my best friend, my person, my companion. So ask yourself, ask each other, what is it that brings meaning into our marriage? And when you find that thing or those things, just go out and do that and do it together. And it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be yours. Now, I want to wrap things up today, and I want to talk about one last thing. At the beginning of this series, I told you that I wasn't trying to pile on a whole lot of guilt or a whole lot of pressure, and especially today, I wanted to be sure that I didn't add to your already struggling, busy life. And I didn't want you to hear this as here's another list, and here's another thing, and here's another bunch of things you got to fill out to add to your already busy life. And I've tried not to do that, and I hope I was a little bit successful. But for some of you, I just need to say, no matter how any of this gets presented, I know it still feels that way. I know it still feels hard. Like, for instance, you tell me, well, I'd love to have that shared bedtime thing you were talking about, but right now I'm working the night shift and we're raising our kids, and we are lucky if we get half an hour together every single day. I get that. You say, I'd love to laugh. I'd love to have fun together, but have you seen our bank account? Our debt has piled up to the point where we have no margin. We can't hardly breathe. You know, last week we talked about how we often find ourselves in marriage operating at this bottom level of surviving, where all we're doing is just making ends meet, and we're just getting by day to day, and there's no time or there's no energy left for the relationship. There's no connection. There's no time for intimacy. And I just want to acknowledge that. I get all of that. We all have to start right there. But I'm also here to tell you that you were not meant to stay there. Living at that place and you stay there for too long, and your marriage will not sustain itself. See, it's fine to be in a season of struggle in your life and a season of hardship when you know that, well, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know that there's something coming that will change that. I can see the end in sight. Like when you're raising toddlers, being able to walk through the living room without tripping over a toy counts for a successful night, right? When you raise that newborn in your house, 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep feels like a spa retreat. I know this. When you're working double shifts and you're trying to get that promotion in the next 2 years, it's just a hard season. The month of May, parents, right? I hear this all the time. May is just so hard. But hey, here we are. It's Memorial Day weekend. We got to the end. Summer's coming and things might change. But I know these seasons are hard, and hard is okay as long as you know the end is coming. But I'm here to tell you, if you can't see the end right now, if there is no plan for you, if there is no hope for your pace of life to slow down or something to shift or something to change, your marriage is not going to survive if you continue to place it on the back burner forever. And so I'm just saying to you, whatever it takes right now to get that light at the end, to change your pace of life or your pattern of your relationship, whatever change needs to be made, somehow make it. Just sit with one another. Ask yourselves as a couple. And this is an important question. Ask each other, if we keep this pace up, if our life stays like this for 5 more years, where will we be? Some of you need to say, if we do this for 10 more years, where could we be? 20. See, it's not sustainable. And I know it probably seems right now like, well, this is impossible. I don't know what to change. And it seems overwhelming. That means you need help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There is no shame in asking for help. Asking for help could be the one thing you need to do to get that light at the end of that tunnel. It could be the bravest decision you make as a couple and the bravest decision you make for your family. So if you need to reach out for help, reach out. I will help you. If I'm the one to help you, I'll help you. And if I'm not, I'll help you find somebody who is. Or maybe you just need to reach out to another couple. Maybe there's another couple in this church or someone in your relational circle, and you look at their life, you look at their marriage, and you think, wow, I wish I had that. Or I hope I'm there when I'm at their space in marriage. You know, they've been doing it for longer than me. I'd love to have a marriage like that. Well, maybe it's time for you to reach out and say, can I sit with you? Can we have dinner together? Can we have coffee? Can we just sit and ask questions? Can we learn from you? Others of you, it's time for you to join this marriage group we're starting this fall and listen to other couples' stories. Whatever you have to do, make the shift, make the change that you need to make to avoid that drift that you now feel from becoming a chasm later down the road. And speaking of that, I know I said one more thing. This is really the one more thing. One last thing. And this is important for some of you, and I did not want to leave this series without saying it. Some of you have been sitting here and listening to me talk for 3 weeks now, and you're barely making it through each of these talks. Because you know that your partner is not on board with you. The bridge, the gap between you is so far, you just don't even know how you're going to bridge it. And you've been trying. And no matter how hard you try, you can't get it done. Some of you walk into your house every single day, and it's like there are eggshells on the floor. You don't know which person you're going to encounter when you walk through that door or when they come home. It's like one day they're angry because you want to spend time with them, and they say, "Stop putting pressure on me. You're crowding me. You're getting into my space. You're putting stress into my life." And then the next day they walk in and they're so upset because you went and spent time on your own and you took care of yourself and you gave them the space they asked for, and now they blame you for walking away and ignoring them. Life for you is like this cycle of ups and downs. You never know what you're going to get. It's like a few days, you're happy, your spouse is loving, they're affectionate, and it stays that way for a little while, and it feels good. Then you start to notice tension starts to build in your relationship just a little at a time. Every day they get a little bit more agitated and a little bit more irritable. But you know what's coming? The blow-up's coming. The anger's coming. The yelling's coming. Maybe even worse. And then you make up. And everything's good again. And the cycle starts all over again. And you know where it's going. You're being abused. It's called the cycle of abuse. And most of the time, people who are married to an abuser can't figure out what in the world's going on. They're trying so hard every single day. They're trying to be loving and to be kind. And no matter what they do, all they get is anger and rejection and blame. Building that kind of marriage, the kind of marriage that we've been talking about, a marriage based on the covenant that reflects the heart and the nature of God, must include two people working equally, just as hard as the other, to make it happen. Right now, if you find yourself to be the only one working, not that it's hard, I'm talking about active resistance. You're the only one trying to repair this relationship. I hate to tell you, you will not find connection. You will not find intimacy. So if anything I just said resonates with you, please reach out for help. Even if your spouse refuses to go to a counselor with you, go without them. Because you need support. You need help to walk through this in a healthy way. And we care about you. We care about your marriage, but we also care about you. We care about your mental health. We care about your emotional health. So you reach out to us if that's where you are. We will walk with you as best as we can. This is what the family of God is meant to be. So before we end, as always, we want you to just sit for a moment with God and consider what He's asking you to do. Nathan's going to come and